everybody. Happy Wednesday. We're here on, I can't believe it. It's already February. I just feel like I was saying hello, Happy New Year, and now we're already in February. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm very excited about a conversation today with Helen Rosario, who is a seasoned leader, a community leader, a change maker, just an all round extraordinary Latina, and a very dear friend who I've had the honor to work with and collaborated and just be together with you, Helen. And I'm just so excited to have you here in our Cafecito today to talk about mentorship and sponsorship and advocacy and all of these great things that we need to keep in mind, and that for some reason some of us didn't know that existed, or maybe we sort of have heard of them but don't know like why it applies to me, or maybe we do but we don't know how to approach it. And so I'm just thrilled. Thank you so much for joining us here, Helen, because I know that this is a topic that's very close to your heart as well.
Yeah, yes, it is. And first of all, thank you, Ileana, for inviting me to have this conversation about one of my passions, which is people growth, and life coaching, and keep supporting our Latino community to keep growing. And thank you again. And as you mentioned, we work together, in another nonprofit organization in Alpha, for Alpha Boston, and I had the blessing to be part of your team. And I was blessed for 2 years to lead the coaching and mentoring program, impacting a lot of our Latino community leaders. Therefore, yes, it is part of my DNA. And it is part of my DNA because I am where I am because I had mentors and I had sponsors, and we will talk a little bit about that, during our conversation, because there's a difference. And there's also advocates, and there's also coaches that sometimes, we need to understand the difference between the mentor and the coach. And I agree with you. Sometimes it is a matter that we don't know what means, and what means for our career, and what means for our future. But sometimes we have the idea, but we can be shy about it. And this is something that it is important to have during the today conversation about how important for us, especially Latinas, to make sure that we have a structured network and we identify those roles for our career. That can be in the private public sector, can be if you're in entrepreneurship career, that you are listening to us and you say, well, maybe that doesn't resonate because this is more corporate, or this is more applies to a public sector. No, this will apply to everyone. Okay, even if you wanted just to have a career starting your own business, this is key, and this is very important.
And you bring up a great points in terms of it doesn't matter where you are from a professional perspective and even a personal perspective. I feel like even as moms, or as whatever we are, whatever role we have on our personal life, we need mentors, others that can, help us along the way. And one of the things that I would like to start the conversation with is recognizing the importance of mentorship. And let's start there, because it's something that, I come from Mexico. I moved to the US 12 years ago, and I didn't realize the importance of that word. Like, it's not something that I thought was a part of, my culture or my upbringing. It was not mentioned anywhere. Although now I realize that I had some mentors, but I didn't like actually do it in a formal perspective. And the importance of that in order to be able to grow, especially because I think many of us are told, tú puedes, like you're superwoman, you're resilient, you're courageous, no? You need to figure it out yourself, because
Mm-hmm.
that's sort of the mindset in a lot of our houses, right? Tú resuelves, no? And not only for you, but
Make it
for everybody else around you. right? So why is mentorship important?
I believe that we can use, and this is something that we share with Ileana. My background is engineering too. Therefore, I love numbers. Okay. And it is important because that will give you the real perspective. Okay. In the United States, based on the last census, we are around over 20%. Okay. And that's very important in terms of the whole population, the Latinos. However, we are less than 5.3% in leadership positions. Can you imagine? This is a huge disparity. If you take the top 500 companies, only 16 CEOs are Latinos. And I guess that are all men. I need to check, okay? But that when you say 16, say 16. No, 16 is 3.2%. And it is important to understand where we are coming from, okay? Because the reality is we are underrepresented. And you will be asking, what links underrepresentation with mentoring and sponsorship? It is directly relationship on that. Because the reality is, it is that if we need to have that representation and we need to be in the table where the decisions are being taken. However, to get there, we need to have a clear vision of where we want to be. And in that sense, part of that, it is to have a clear plan with the support of a mentor. And when we talk about a mentor, it is important to identify what means a mentor. And a mentor is someone to guide you and will be an expert. It is what we call a subject matter expert on the area that you are working on your career development process. But cannot be by chance, cannot be, oh, I like this person, I will be my mentor. First of all, it is so important that you identify your vision. It is so important that you identify which will be the path that you wanted to follow, and then identify who will be the best mentor for you. It, mentors can change, and I would like to highlight this. In my career, as you said, Ileana, I had the blessing of different mentors, and I had the blessing to work in a company that they promoted that. Therefore, I learned about it. But again, it was a blessing. Not everybody had that opportunity. Therefore, it is important during this conversation that, first of all, as a Latina leader, you identify where you want it to be. Where is your vision? Where's your mission? And which are the steps that you need to follow? And identify a mentor that can help you to guide you through that. When we talk about a coach is more direct. And sometimes mentors can be coaches too, because the coach will be directly telling you how to do things. It is like in the sports, they train you, they tell you what to do. Therefore, sometimes in the relationship of mentorship, you may change, your mentor will change the role to a coach. Sometimes, if you're in the corporate or public sector, sometimes your boss will become your coach. Therefore, it is important to understand the two differences. And there comes the advocates. And advocates are these people that promotes you because of your results, of your relationships, and also what you bring to the table as well. Now, there's always a needs to have a win-win. And advocates can be peers, can be people that used to work for you and were part of your team, can be people that you work in matrix organizations. And this is the people that I may suggest you, and I love LinkedIn, that in LinkedIn, you will find an area that you ask for recommendations. This is the area that you can ask for those advocates to promote you, and can be as many as you can. There's no limit for your advocates. And going to the sponsors, then the key point on the sponsors, it is sponsors must be in high levels, you know, must be high level ranks in the organization. If it is public or private, if you're in entrepreneurship, for example, I may suggest Chamber of Commerce presidents, board of directors, in that will be in different organizations. These kind of people that you have the relationship, and they will think about you when comes an opportunity, and they will highlight and they will call you and say, you are the perfect person for that position, you're the perfect fit for that position. That's the difference between each one of those. But it is so important that you map that. It is so important that you sit down, and take your time, and you identify which are your mentors. And I may say not too many, because at that point of time, you don't want to burden many people with the same conversation. Be also compassionate about others people time. And I will talk a little bit about that for a few seconds after this, because I had that experience in the past. Your mentor, your if will be a different to be your coach, if it is your boss or so, your advocates, and identify those advocates, and depending also on the skills and the relationship that you have with them, and then you identify your sponsors. And after you do that, of course, it is important to reach out, and it is important to have the conversations, and it is important to have a cadence, especially with your mentor, on how you will progress in that relationship. Therefore, it is and it is a non-ending process. This will evolve. And as I mentioned to you, Ileana, and to the Latinas that are listening today, the reality is that may change your role, and may change your priorities, and may change your mentor. Therefore, you need to be flexible, that this is something that may change every year, every 2 years or so. But yeah, I'm very, as you notice, I'm very passionate, because I really believe on this. And even for students, if we have anyone that are going through some kind of advanced education, and so that will apply to them as well.
You bring up so many important points, but I want to go back to the beginning where you said the first thing is to identify sort of what you want to do, and then from there, all of these different types of people that you need to have surround you. You can identify them, and then you can move forward with them to help you achieve that goal. But for many of us, sometimes we're stuck in the, well, I don't even know like what I want to do. So then how do I get to all of these other people if exactly I'm stuck in where do I want to go next, or what do I want to be when I grow up kind of question. And I know that in my career, I've been in those situations where I just hated when people ask me, well, what it is that you want to do? And I'm like, if I knew, I wouldn't be stuck in, in this situation, right?
Yeah.
And I want to mention that when you're stuck in that situation, that's where, for example, coaches can come in that can help you go through a specific process, and each coach has its different methodologies to be able to then figure that one out, so that then you have that sort of north star that then helps with everybody else. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't figure it on your own. The difference is, and this I say from my own experience, to me, trying to figure it out on my own, it took me about 2 years, versus with a coach, it took me like, well, it took me 2 years to figure out that I needed then a coach to help me figure out what I wanted to do. And then I figured it out in 6 weeks, right? It's just the time that you want to spend or waste. And I don't want to use the word waste, but just like not be as effective or efficient, versus if you do it on your own, versus if you bring all of these other people. It's really that accelerator fuel to be
Yeah.
able to get there, whatever it is that you want, faster. So just wanted to touch on
I
that.
I love that because just before we started, and also you mentioned it in the introduction, as Latinas and Latinos, our Latino community, we value so much resilience, as you mentioned, and we need to, I'm not saying no. And we value a lot making things happen by our own. And what this conversation is bringing to us, it is that we are a community. And we are not necessarily a community just Latinos. It is a full community, you know, that embrace, the whole diversity. Therefore, I totally agree with you. It is looking for support, and looking for support, it is okay. Actually, I need to say it. If we need support and we raise the hand and say, I need support, I really admire that kind of people, because you know that they are identifying the areas that they need to improve and they are committed to that, versus I wanted to do it just by myself. Therefore, yes, I totally agree with you. Also, in the same line, if you had in the past a mentor and you're in that kind of situation that you're looking for what will be next, and that person already knows you, maybe will not be your mentor for the next phase, but that person can support you to identify, as you said, will be like a coach to identify and help you to find your next steps. But I totally agree with you. And there's so amazing coaches, and I'm looking at one that will support, on finding that path. One of the other things that I wanted to highlight about mentorship and sponsorship, it is about going outside and thinking out of the box, especially because one of the things that it is already identified that it is a handicap for the Latino community, it is that we don't have necessarily the sponsorship and the mentorship that we require, but also because the majority of the board of directors are predominantly men and white. Therefore, we need to start identifying mentors as well as sponsors outside of our Latino community. And we need to start without being shy, without feeling, oh, will be awkward, what they would think about me, that you're amazing, that you're looking for a career growth, and that you're great. Because if you're not great, you will not be doing that. Therefore, what can happen? That the person will tell you, maybe I don't have the time, but I can support you in other ways. We need to start reaching out. We need to start taking out, I will say again, being shy, and feeling a little bit awkward, to knock the doors and say, I need support. Therefore, I'm linking what you mentioned about linking the support for a life, for a career coach, but also having the support from our mentors and our sponsors. We need to ask for help too. And it is perfectly fine because other people is doing it. Okay. Therefore, why we don't do that?
I completely agree. It is not in our nature. Or I don't want to like generalize, but for many of us, and I've even had to find that myself the hard way. It's not in our nature because we don't feel comfortable asking for help. And mentorship, sponsorship, like all of these, in a way, it starts with asking for that help, and that feels like there's guilt, there's shame. I can't do this, and it's actually not. It's help in a good way, because none of us know everything, right? And so that's the important. Now you bring up an important point about, it's not only about the asking for help and knowing, and you talk about pushing outside our area of influence to find some of these people. Once you've identified them, based on your experience or your recommendation, how do you reach out to them? how do you overcome la penita, no? Of saying, I want you to be my mentor, or I want you to be my sponsor. Because sponsor is also a little bit more delicate because now they're putting their hands on fire for you. So how do you recommend some tips or best practices on how to go about that?
Yeah, I think that the first step, it is in a structured way. As mentioned before, you need to identify and you need to do that mapping, you know and it is clear, and it's very important to have clear which is the relationship. For example, I will, from the top of my head, one of my sponsors, he is a senior president in a top 500 company. Okay. um, Part of that relationship started because he used to be the boss of my boss. And during that relationship, I asked him if in the future he could become my sponsor. I need to tell you, he is one of the top sponsors that I have. And it is outside of the Latino community too. Okay. Uh, but it was during a conversation that I had with him. My recommendation, it is map that, identify which is what is the role of that person, in your career. What is the current relationship? Maybe it is a former boss, or a former, I call Bob, boss of my boss, and identify that, and start knocking doors. Okay. I may say it is important linking, and I will be again saying that because right now this social platform, you can keep in touch in so many ways. Therefore, keep in touch, identify these people, and then start. If you haven't had the conversation with them for so long, start again. It will be perfectly fine. um, Again, it comes a lot with results, comes a lot with trust. That's why it is important that you identify people that you feel comfortable, because you had worked with them, or you had a relationship with them in the past, that brought up, the best of that relationship for both. Because in the relationship, it is two sides. Therefore, you need to make sure that the outcome of that relationship was a win-win for both.
You just touched on an important thing, which is relationships take time. So even
Mhm.
though you identify them, that doesn't mean that you have a strong relationship with them in that moment. I mean, maybe you do, but maybe you don't. And so it's important that we start today to do this work so that you can start building those relationships. Because what I see, and I don't know you, Helen, from your side, is that when we're good, we don't think about this, right? We're just focused on our work. But then when we hit that wall, that's when we're like, oh my God, I need mentors, I need, and we don't realize that moment takes time to develop. So if you are already not doing that, like having mentors, having sponsors, building those relationships, now is a perfect time to start doing it because you never know, right? Like, don't wait until literally you are trying to get that advice or need it for tomorrow, because it's going to be very hard to get. So I think that was an important call out that you mentioned, right? And then
Yeah.
one thing, go ahead.
No, and as you mentioned, relationships takes time, however, doesn't take so long. You know what I mean? Just a touch, just, hi, how are you? I'm here. I just remember when we did this, or I wanted to reach out just to say hi and know how you're doing. That's great. You don't need to have an amazing speech for that. It is just keeping in touch.
Yeah. Yeah, Mela, thank you for your question. Are there any directories we could visit to start mapping who you need to reach out to? I don't think there is, but I would say go with what Helen is saying in terms of think about mentors, formal and informal. Think of sponsors. Think of advocates. Think of coaches, and just start with like that list. And then the other thing that I can provide, and Helen, please feel free to jump in. There are many organizations. United Latinas is one of them. Alpha is another, that already have mentorship programs that maybe you can sign up for, and they can then walk you through one of these processes, or you can bring that up to say, hey, I formally don't know how to go about this, but I would love to start here. Can you help me out? So that's another venue. Helen, I don't know if you have any other recommendations.
Yeah, I believe to get engaged continuously on coaching and mentoring programs. You mentioned as Alpha, United Latinas. Look for those. In the case of United Latinas, you have an amazing mentoring programs just dedicated to women, which is great, and I will say yes. My suggestion as well, Yamela, it is you don't. This is not rocket science. Sorry to say that you can start yourself with these four areas, four roles that I mentioned to you before: mentors, coaches, advocates, and sponsors, and start identifying those names. Um, in terms of directories, I would say it's a little bit difficult to say that because it is your network, you know, and depends on your relationships that you have already set up, but if you can start with both, first your own network mapping, and also on the side a coaching and mentoring program and a structured coaching and mentoring program, that will be great.
And feel free to connect with us, connect with me,
Exactly.
connect with Helen on LinkedIn. We'd be happy. We've both been very intentional about building our own network. So happy to make warm introductions as always. That's what this is all about, right? To be able to share and connect resources. We've run out of time. It's amazing. Like, we need to set up another of these conversations. But any like final call outs, final invitations, final thoughts?
Yeah. First of all, thank you. And it is our passion. We can be talking about that and engaging on this because, again, this is a call for action. To you that you're listening to us, that you are a Latina and you're a leader, identify your network intentionally. Make sure that you don't miss it, and make sure, oh, Sharon is there. Make sure that you don't miss it. You don't miss the opportunity to keep growing and to have, a, again, a seat on the table where the decisions are being taken. This is the way we will be moving from being underrepresented to be represented. And as Latinos, we have the power to make sure that things will be better every day. Therefore, thank you so much, Ileana, for the opportunity. I'm so blessed to have your friendship, you to be one of my coaches and mentors too, and I'm blessed to have you and to be part of United Latinas.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much. And join us at unitedlatinas.com, or join the Mighty Hub, which is where we're all gathering together. We just recently launched this platform as a part of United Latinas, where we can all connect and continue these conversations. That is unitedlatinas.mn.co as well. It's free to join, and you'll be able to connect with all of us and continue with these very enriching conversations and find out about all the different events and programs and resources that we have available, because this is what this community is all about. We don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. We all have amazing expertise best practices that we can share with each other. And that's what this platform is all about. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Helen, for being here with us today. And meet us next week because we're here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day wherever in the world you are. Thank you, Helen.